Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishna here. Basically, we are discussing one of the topic that is city creation. In city creation, basically, we are discussing one of the topic that is India account. In India account, basically, we are discussing one of the topic that is lava creation. In lava creation, basically, we are talking. We in this basically we are talking about few points. Basically, one point is which project is ongoing. Basically, in Mumbai. In that, basically, we told that basically there are 1 lakh project basically which is ongoing. So one of the person told that 1 lakh project basically how they are designing here basically because they know that that means one of the person told that the lava creation group basically that are connected with the system analysis group basically the software companies and the with the project managers basically the software delivery heads or basically the business development group basically because project managers are not connected with the clients, delivery heads are not connected with the clients, business development groups basically are connected with the clients. So here the topic is business development groups are connected with the lava group basically. That is 100% sure basically. For example, India is basically controlled by how many people basically that we have taken. 35 people basically are controlling around 100 countries. In that basically India is also one of the country. That means that group are the business development group basically. They are connected with set of software companies and they are the company owners basically, and company owners basically designs the framework. In framework basically which framework basically would be that in that basically the software company have to work basically. In this basically there are two methodology, one is waterfall and another is agile methodology. In that basically few companies says that basically we are going to use waterfall because we have the perfect data for this project. This data is never going to change, never going to change. That means waterfall is the best methodology. Other group says that the what agile methodology. In agile methodology the data keeps on changing, that means the requirements keeps on changing basically. So that is one thing. Here basically they say that basically few companies says that we basically don't believe in anyone basically because the project is up to that level. So they design scrum framework basically. In scrum framework product owner is there, product manager is there, and scrum developers basically are there. So there are one or two people basically who are connected with the clients, but the managers and service delivery head basically are not connected with the clients. They are basically connected with whom basically that business development group basically, who are basically the client, and they are basically giving the requirements to the delivery heads. That basically you can say the product manager or basically who are basically the product owner basically. Here product owner means he is responsible for all the requirements. So the business development officer basically they becomes product owner basically you can say, and they basically gives the requirements to the product managers or basically you can say managers or basically you can say as a delivery heads basically you can say. Delivery head basically don't take the requirements basically. Here basically only to the delivery heads basically because they have to fully concentrate on deliveries basically. That is the project deliveries. Otherwise basically if they will concentrate on one project by taking the requirements, then there are hundreds of projects basically which will get delay basically. And if the company owner will ask the question basically what is the status of this 35 products 35 projects, so he basically will not able to give the answer. That's why basically the delivery heads basically never takes the requirements. If they will take the requirement, then basically they will only take the requirement. They will be busy because to take the requirement also it's very dangerous thing basically. If any of the basically business logic basically, that is the business cases basically, that will get wrong basically, wrong condition basically is given, then it will create problem to the project basically. So that's why business development delivery heads basically they never takes the requirements. So few companies says that we basically can't trust on anyone, so we use the agile methodology. In that basically the scrum framework are used. Few people says that basically we basically don't have any risk, so they basically directly deals with the clients basically. They basically directly deals with the clients basically. So that kind of project are also basically available. So here basically dependency is what? 1 lakh project basically is ongoing. So here again, what actually the problem is? Problem is Lava Group basically know the requirements. They have dumped into the land basically. In that land basically, they told that government this is the land area from where basically you have to take the power. Reason this 1 lakh project basically which is ongoing basically like this basically many projects are basically finished and the government is telling that basically we have done the correct way basically. So assume that basically 1 lakh project basically which is ongoing, that data basically that is a power data are taken from the that particular area. Power data means what? They are going to do they are basically are going to create the project. In that basically the brain is going to connect with certain level of ideas basically. That basically is the power data. So you can just imagine basically the computers basically which are designed, that is the Dell, HP, Compaq, Microsoft, many frameworks basically are there, many assembled computers. So that means this group basically are designed up to that level basically. So you can just imagine this. So one of the person told that business development officer basically they are connected with the set of software companies owner basically. So lots of people says that the company owner को तो क्या पता है basically. But they are the main people basically. They know everything that basically these all are the 35 people who are actually giving the requirements to India. And that, but up to this level, basically, they might not be knowing that the power supply, basically, which is getting, that is from that particular land area. Up to that level, basically, it's very difficult to, because they are not connected with directly with the government. Basically, software company basically don't know that basically the power supply which is getting basically that is perfectly mapped with the according to the projects basically. So government groups know about this 1 lakh projects which is ongoing basically. 1 lakh project which is projects basically you can say which is ongoing, which is developed by the software companies. Here basically I have taken the example of software company, that is basically the Capgemini, TCS, eClerx, Oracle, then the Patani, then the IBMC, um, then the Emphasis, then the eClerx. Like this basically many software companies basically are there. And this big company basically gives the requirement to the small software companies. Because one big company basically can't create the entire projects basically. So they have to segregate the projects that this type of projects basically that comes to the sprint basically. In that sprint basically small level projects basically that comes to private limited project, that is basically one sprint. They give this type of project to private limited company. Limited company, that is basically one sprint. The big level company give the project to the limited company. So like this, they divide the project, and like this, basically the entire India basically is having around more than 5 lakh companies. That is a software company basically, and Bangalore is basically the heart of IT industry basically, and Pune basically is also there. Hyderabad is also there. So these all are basically the root of the software companies basically. If this area basically anything happens, that means entire IT industry is going to get effect. Few people are telling that basically we are directly working from home only. So we don't have any problem basically with the areas. That kind of people also basically are there. They are not aware about the areas. They are not aware about the areas basically from which area basically the company basically they are working. So you can just imagine like this basically the entire creation is already done. So you can just imagine basically the creation basically is already done basically. So when the person told that like this basically the 1 lakh project basically are connected with the business development officer of the India who are actually giving the business to the India. In that 35 people basically are there who are giving the business to India. and they are basically giving business to India, and India basically is getting the business basically. And in this basically the software companies are telling that basically we are getting the business, so there is no problem basically. So problem is there not there, then basically easily everything is basically working basically ongoing basically. If problem occurs, then basically they jumps into the problems basically. That why basically we are not getting the projects. If they will not get the projects, then basically they have to shut down the companies basically. Lots of things basically happens basically. But the root is this lava basically. Currently, 1 lakh project basically which the government is, sorry, which the software companies are doing, and which is created by the governments basically, which is handled by the governments. They are telling that the power company is getting the data for these projects that is from that area basically, and that area basically takes data from nuclear. That area basically are taken data from nuclear power company, energy company. And lots of people says that satellite groups also directly takes the data, and they are connected. Satellite groups are connected to the nuclear power company and power company and energy company. They basically gives the data to projects. So you can just imagine basically like this. Lots of projects basically are created, and here the main thing is lots of human needs are also created from this way projects basically, and everything basically is going fine. That means basically nothing basically is happening in the world basically. Nothing is happening. That means everything the software companies basically have done the perfect task basically. They have done the 100% task. That's why basically nothing is happening in the world, na, basically. Otherwise, basically lots of big problem will not occur basically. Otherwise, basically big problem basically will not occur basically. The satellite group basically will not start doing the problem basically. That means something basically nothing has, sorry, basically the creation basically has done everything perfectly basically. So you can just imagine basically the power supply basically. Lots of people says that India is the country basically who always take the risk, and the risk is sun solar system basically. So few people told that the groups basically who actually taken the data of power supply from that land basically, they might not have thought this basically, the sun solar system, that they might be also correct na, basically. They are taking data from land, so they have not thought that basically they are taking the risky data basically. But if they are getting the data from sun solar system, then why basically they have not taken data from sun solar system? That is also question na, basically. That is also question basically, that why they have not taken data from sun solar system. This question arrives basically. It's not like that basically the question will not arrive. The question will arrive basically. So lots of people says that there are many difficulty basically which are getting problem, which are basically collected. So few people told that the land basically which is getting created, lava system basically which is created, the future projects basically which are dumped into the land, that type of thing the sun solar system basically can do. Then they told that basically the environment is getting handled na, basically. In that environment basically we can't dump the future data basically. And from that environment basically whatever the sun solar system basically are connected with the private companies basically, that can be not mapped basically. But here the question is basically, if you are basically dumping the data in the environment, but you know that basically up to what level the environment is going to process, because in environment basically everything basically contain fire data. If you say that basically fire basically how the fire basically happens, that is from environment process data basically. Then the water basically gets generated, then the hot environment gets generated, then the cold environment gets generates. Each and every, that is the season group basically which is generating in the from the environment basically. So that is also risky basically. So lots of people says that India is that country basically they always take the risk, and the biggest example is this sun solar system. They have taken the risk, and they are telling that everything is going fine, and risk basically they are telling the risk they have taken, and everything is going fine basically. So they are basically into successful risk. So this comes to the risk management plan basically. That if you are doing any projects in the PMP, that is the project management plan, there is one document which is called as a risk management plan. In that basically all risk data basically are written. If you are doing this project basically, which all are data basically which is going when basically you are going to start this project, or basically when you are going to start this module, what are the risk factor basically. So you can say that basically sprint wise, or basically the task wise risk factor basically are written in that risk register basically. So whenever you are going to start this task, which all are the risk basically which is going to you are going to face. So template contains sprint and task level risk management. That comes to the agile methodology risk management plan document. So here basically the document has changed according to the agile method. In waterfall basically the requirement basically are totally different because their data never change basically. If data will not change, then basically it's a waterfall basically. Once the module has finished, then basically you never have to go back basically until basically there is a syntax, some error basically. The business logic which is written basically in that business logic only basically there are some error basically which by default mistake basically that was not tested in the testing algorithm basically, because the testing algorithm basically was very complicated, the module was very complicated. Due to that reason basically the testing algorithm was not able to capture that data. Due to that basically the data was not able to capture basically. So you can just able to imagine basically everything is done basically. So one of the person told that basically to handle one software companies like small software company also basically it's a huge level of risk basically. So big companies basically says that basically we have created lots of companies. So if we feel that basically this project basically is going to create problem to us, risk factor is too much, so they pass the project to that small software companies, and the small software companies owners basically are dummy owner which is created by the big software companies, but the dummy owner basically gets the money and gets everything according to the company owner basically gets. So you can just imagine basically risk factor basically are too much basically. In that basically risk factor basically lots of small software companies are also created because it's connected. You just seen basically one power company basis, sorry, the one project to complete 1 lakh project basically, the lava data basically are taken, and lava basically are dumped where basically in the land basically inside the land, and from that land basically the power companies are taking the data, and according to the projects basically they are passing the data to the software companies. So just imagine basically how the time management system basically is of this chain basically which is going off 1 lakh project, that is basically handled by the government basically. In that government basically, which government that is not supposed to say, that is Congress, BJP, Aam Aadmi Party, then the Basava, like this basically many Congress, many parties basically are there. They are into this projects basically, and they have done everything according to this plan only, which basically I discussed, and everything is done basically. So you can just imagine basically how dangerous the mapping is to do one simple project basically. You will not be able to believe it. Basically. Lots of people says that Sunil, how you tracked here basically this type of thing basically. because this type of thing basically software company owner basically also might not be knowing. That is the thing, basically how basically that was tracked basically, because lava creation is the future creation. Currently, which project basically which is ongoing, the lava which is getting generated, that basically generates the lava. Sorry, the that basically after finishing the project basically, that lava data basically converts into the water. That water basically, this 1 lakh people basically who have done the project, they gets that water one day. They will drink that water one day basically. That is 100% sure. So from that basically the chain gets generates. So one of the person told that up to this level, the government or the countries basically who are into the each and every human needs creation, they basically have basically data up to this level, that from this 1 lakh project, this sorry, from 1 lakh project basically was completed from this lava data, and that lava data basically has now converted into water, and that water basically has done lots of processes land, and then basically it shifted to seawater, and then basically again that seawater basically given that data to the land area, and in that land area basically the water is dumped off that project basically. So you can just able to imagine basically how the stuff basically are created. So everything is basically done basically, and mostly everything is done, and nothing basically is happening in the world, and nothing basically satellite groups are not reacting anything basically. That means everything is perfectly done. One example I will take basically, you will not able to believe that basically. Whatever task basically we are doing in this world, and basically that task basically is done by satellite group first. So in this world, basically assume that basically TCS is the first company who launched their project in India. So that project basically, any project basically, it can be any project. That project basically was done first basically by the satellite groups basically. They have created one project in uh, satellite, and in the satellite basically the coder also basically are there. They have developed everything basically in the satellites, and after that basically they have told that basically now basically they have tested everything, huh, basically they have tested everything, that each and every mapping basically which they are thinking that each and everything basically it's going up to what level basically they are doing the mapping everything basically there. After that basically they are telling that basically now basically earth planet you can start with the task basically which we have done, that is basically the software company's project basically. So what they are checking basically, satellite group basically are checking what basically, that after that only basically they transfer the task to the earth planet, because in this world basically there is no project basic, there is no task which is directly done in the earth planet. Each and every task basically are checked in the satellite groups and universe area. After that only basically it has given to the earth planet, and they are basically checking each and everything. Reason, activation only happens from the satellites. So you can just able to imagine. But there basically the question was, they are taking data from where basically? That is very dangerous thing basically. Is that basically the lava company lava data basically which is dumped into the land basically? The satellite groups are taking directly data from that lava land basically. Like this basically they are telling that basically the data basically which is dumped into into the land basically, that is giving perfect data basically, which is basically mapped inside the lava land basically. So is that they are checking basically. So from the person told that each and every task basically which earth planet is going to do, that is basically dumped in the form of the land basically, that is the lava land, that is the lava data, and that is basically checked by the satellite group first, and after that basically the Earth planet basically gets the data. That is the task, that this is your new task basically. You can start with the Earth planet, sorry, in the Earth planet. So possibilities are there basically, but you can't say 100% basically that this way only the stuff basically has done. But here the thing is, power supply data basically, which is taken by the government's group basically. So you can just imagine basically up to what level the stuff basically are connected. So you can just imagine basically how the 1 lakh project basically, which is ongoing in Mumbai. One person basically asked the question, Sunil, what is the one satellite group basically asked the question, what is the status of this project basically? Up to what level the power data basically are given to this projects? So the nuclear power company only basically can give the data, but they don't have the exact percentage data because they don't have the total 100% power data with them, or basically they have them basically. That is also question basically. So one satellite group basically asked the question, how many percentage of power data basically which has occupied by this, sorry, used by these 100 projects, 1 lakh project basically which is ongoing. That is just this software company basically used how many percentage of power data. So you can just imagine basically the power supply which is coming basically, how dangerous it is. They are just maintaining the entire environment basically into the software company basically. So the base environment is where basically the software company is created. Then basically the other stuff basically comes. So for example, Infosys basically got around 300 projects. So the 300 projects environment basically settled in the Infosys and campus first. Then the basically data are transferred in the form of the power supply from that lava group basically. That is the, they basically don't get directly data from the lava. They basically gets data from the nuclear power company and energy company. So you can just imagine basically up to what level the creation basically has done and is ongoing basically. The all software companies basically are working from offices and they are basically doing the projects of this 1 lakh project. So question basically arrived, how many percentage of the power supply data are taken from the lava data by this 1 lakh software companies group basically. How many percentage of project basically has been completed? How many percentage of power data basically is remaining? When this lava data basically is going to convert into water, which is the data basically which has created, which has basically helped in creating this 1 lakh project in the form of power data basically. Where is the status? Where basically is this water lava basically? Sorry, where is the water basically which has reached in the process basically, which has converted from lava data? Is it in sea or basically it's in land basically? So after that sea water basically, where this water basically is going to placed, which is the source of this 1 lakh project basically. So this 1 lakh project basically is going to create lots of human needs. It's going to create vegetable, it's going to create fruits, it's going to create what cotton, it's going to create petrol, it's going to create oil, it's going to create lots of things basically. So is that basically the each and every human needs basically which is getting used? Is that basically they are taking the perfect water basically? So that is that water basically which has created from that 1 lakh projects. So is this basically everything mapping basically is done like this the world has created? That also somebody basically from universe asked. So you can just imagine basically the to create 1 lakh project basically up to what level the mapping basically are done, and each and every mapping basically on the base of mapping only the world basically is ongoing na basically. On the base of this whole mapping basically the project is getting created, and it has lots of projects has created and it has converted into the human needs also basically. And your body basically gives the answer basically, that whatever thing basically you had into this body basically, how basically it has created. Is there any damage basically happened in your hand? Is there any damage happened to your head? Is any damage happened to your eye? Is any damage basically happened to your leg? That your body basically says everything basically. After having that human needs. With the perfect combination of water basically, which basically the responsibilities of government basically. Here basically software company basically will not do the take the responsibility. But they are supposed to check everything basically. But they have to be clear everything basically. That this was the responsibility of government basically. So here one of the person told that so government up to what level government basically responsible basically. If anybody is not getting the job, then who will be responsible? Then that is by default governments, na, basically they are responsible because they are connected with the software companies basically. So you can just imagine basically. I actually basically can't imagine basically the mapping basic. So this basically converts into one project. Basically, you can say one slot of projects up to what level it's connected and what is the output basically and up to water level output basically I'm telling you. And sea water basically which is having the sea water it's containing how many projects data basically. You can just imagine basically. And that water basically are dumped into the land areas basically which is getting processed and after that basically certain time basically that water is getting used basically. Reason basically perfect combination is required na basically for this 1 lakh project basically which is done and which has created the lots of human needs that required water na basically. So that water is that basically 1 lakh project created that lava and the lava dumped into the sea water in the form of water then basically it has taken back to the land area. That water basically I'm taking. So you can just imagine basically. And this everything is done basically. This everything is done. So currently what actually we are discussing here we are discussing is first point that is 1 lakh projects basically which is ongoing in Mumbai city and they are getting the power supply data from which areas, that is the lava areas, and how many percentage of power supply data they have used. So in next video basically we are going to see a little bit more detail about this topics which is ongoing.